Hello, for this assignment you're going to spend quite some time drawing a carbon cycle. Again, you're not to copy from a drawing, but you're going to have to draw from here, and I'll tell you why that was important in a little bit. You're going to use this document to create a carbon cycle or to draw a carbon cycle. So I'm going to read it first. It says right here, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas and traps heat in the atmosphere. So that's what a greenhouse gas is. A greenhouse gas is a gas that traps heat in the atmosphere. Without it and other greenhouse gases, Earth would be a frozen world. But humans have burned so much fuel that there is about 30% more carbon dioxide in the air today than there was about 150 years ago. The atmosphere has not held this much carbon for at least 420,000 years, according to data from ice cores. More greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, are causing our planet to become warmer. Carbon moves through our planet over longer time scales as well. For example, over millions of years, weathering of rocks on land may add carbon to surface water, which eventually runs off or travels all the way to the ocean. Chemical weathering of silicate materials, in particular, can have an effect on the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Additionally, over long time scales, carbon is removed from seawater when the shells and bones of marine animals and plankton collect on the seafloor. So this is explaining where carbon is going naturally. These shells and bones are made of limestone which contains carbon. When they are deposited on the seafloor, carbon is stored from the rest of the carbon cycle for some amount of time. The amount of limestone deposited on the ocean depends somewhat on the amount of warm, tropical shallow oceans on the planet because this is where prolific limestone producing organisms such as corals live. The carbon can be released back to the atmosphere if the limestone melts or is metamorphosed in a subduction zone, which is a sinking zone, it's a sinking plate. Now, this carbon cycle does not include humans on purpose. My goal is for you guys, as you're drawing these carbon cycles, think about all the different ways in which humans can disrupt, positively affect, or no, sorry, not positive, but be beneficial to the carbon cycle or be harmful to the carbon cycle. So you're gonna have to think about those things for as far as how humans go. But we're not going to include humans necessarily on this carbon cycle. Um, so there is going to be a couple of sets, right, on the reading. Procedures. Read the selection below about the carbon cycle. Okay, so now we're gonna read the carbon cycle in general, and I think it's gonna include humans a little bit in that one. As you read, draw what happens to carbon as it travels through the cycle. So you're gonna have to draw everything that says in there. Use arrows to show when carbon moves from one section to the next. Make sure to label your drawing, include captions. I want you guys to make sure you do that because anybody can just do a squibble line and I have no idea what that means. And you have no idea what that means. And nobody has idea what that means. But when you label something and you put, okay, this that I'm drawing right here, this squibble thing that I'm drawing is a house. This little animal that looks like a mouse is actually a bear. This little lamp that you're seeing is actually a tree. So like you gotta make sure that you are labeling every single part of your drawing. And you're gonna include captions that explain where the carbon is and describe what is happening to as it moves. Okay, so this is kind of like your rubric. Uh, like if you just do whatever, you're gonna get a 1. But if you read and draw what happens in every single part of that reading, travel carbon through the cycle, you're gonna get a 2. If you're using arrows to show where carbon moves from and to, so it's not just where carbon's going, but it's where is carbon coming from and where is it going next. You're gonna use arrows to do that. Then you have a 3. And if you do all of this and your drawing has a label and include captions and you're describing what happens, you're gonna get a 4. So that's kind of what the idea is going to be as far as grading goes So 4 is mastery. Okay, so right here, the carbon cycle. Carbon is an element. It is part of oceans, rocks, soils, living things. Carbon doesn't stay in one place. It's always on the move. All right, so section 1. So you're going to have some space right here. You don't have to do it on this paper. You can just do it on your own piece of paper and then take a picture and then upload it to Canvas. And again, like I said, there's many ways to do so. You can do it with your phone. You can take a picture with your the camera on your computer and then upload it to Canvas. All right, section 1, atmosphere. Carbon can be found on the atmosphere as CO2. For this part, you have to draw this part. You can't just draw carbon on the air and that's it. You're going to have to find carbon, or carbon can be found in the atmosphere as CO2. So you can't just draw a cloud and carbon. You have to make sure that carbon is in the entire atmosphere and that is CO2. Section 2, plants. Carbon moves from the atmosphere to plants. You cannot just draw a cloud, a tree, and then an arrow. No. You're going to have to draw this section right here. You're going to say, in the atmosphere, which you're drawing, carbon, which you're drawing, is attached to oxygen as carbon dioxide, which you're drawing. With this help of the sun, which you're also going to draw, right, through the process of photosynthesis. You have to draw photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide, and you can use your notes and your previous assignments to do that. Carbon dioxide is pulled from the air to make plant food from carbon. So it's not just carbon traveling to the plant, but carbon is going to get pulled out of the atmosphere through the process of photosynthesis, and then they're going to make food or glucose for the plant, right? So that's what you're drawing. You're not just drawing carbon, air, plant goes there. No, it doesn't. That's not what happens ever in real life. um, but the plant is almost like suctioning or taking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere for itself, converts it into glucose. All right, section 2, animals. Carbon moves from plants to animals through food chains, so you're gonna have to draw a food chain. So you can't just draw like a squirrel and be like, okay, I'm done. You're gonna have to draw a food chain. The carbon that is in plants moves to the animals, in plural, that eat them. So not just one animal eats the plant, but several of them. Animals that eat other animals get carbon from their food too. So right here, I'm gonna make a pause right here. So that's kind of the idea of what you have to draw. You have to draw every single section and pay close attention to almost every word. It's almost like you have to draw every word from the section. You can't just draw the whole section and call it a day. You have to pay attention to every word in there. Next, section 3, the ground. So now I'm just gonna read it, but again, as you're drawing this, you have to pay close attention to every word in the description and make sure that every word in the description is added to your drawing. The ground. Carbon moves from plants to animals of the ground. Okay, so here we go. Ready? Let's go. When plants and animals die, so plants and animals in your drawing, right, die, their bodies, wood and leaves, decay, bringing the carbon into the ground. Some become buried miles underground. So you gotta make sure that you draw that, or through your drawing show that, and will become fossil fuels in millions and millions of years. Let me give you another non-example. If you draw a cat becoming a fossil, or if you draw a cow becoming a fossil, that is not correct. There's not enough millions of years for any of these to become fossils if they die today. So you're gonna have to think about fossil fuels from millions of years ago. Okay? Let me give you an example of what you can draw. You can draw a food chain. You can draw a tree going to animal 1, animal 2, animal 3, and then one of these, or a plant eaten by several different animals. One of them from millions and millions of years ago, or the plant itself from millions of years ago, the plant dies, gets buried underground, and then becomes a fossil after millions and millions of years. All right, now I'm just going to read. Section 4, ground to atmosphere. Carbon moves from living things to the atmosphere. Each time you exhale, you are releasing carbon dioxide gas into the atmosphere. Animals and plants get rid of carbon dioxide gas through a process called respiration. Section 5. Fossils to the atmosphere. Carbon moves from fossil fuels to the atmosphere when fuels are burned. When humans burn fossil fuels to power factories, power plants, cars, trucks, most of the carbon quickly enters the atmosphere carbon as carbon dioxide gas. Each year, 5.5 billion tons of carbon released by burning fossil fuels. That's the weight of 100 million adult African elephants. Of the huge amount of carbon that is released from fuels, 3.3 billion tons enters the atmosphere, and most of the rest becomes dissolved in seawater. Section 6. Oceans. Carbon that moves from the atmosphere to the oceans. The oceans and other bodies of water soak up some carbon from the atmosphere. Animals that live in the ocean can use carbon to build their skeletons and shells. And that's it. Now, if you notice me as I was reading, I was highlighting some words. All of those words have to go in your carbon cycle. For example, if you were to draw something like this drawing right here, that would not be accurate. That is first grade level. If you were to draw something like this, that would be a lot more accurate actually. Okay, but again, that's not in the reading. That's not what the reading is saying. If you were to draw something like this, that's a little bit more accurate, but it's not in the reading, right? If you were to draw something like this, again, that's better. That is, a lot of these parts are actually in the reading, but the reading didn't go all the way into cellular respiration. So if you were to draw something like this, that's pretty good. But if I was somebody who's just reading this, I don't understand what's going on. Something like this is a lot more accurate. There's a lot of evidence in there. There's a lot more evidence. It's a lot more accurate, but you can't copy this because that would be plagiarizing. So you can't plagiarize for any of this. You have to create your own based on this reading. Okay? All right. Perfect. And it's going to be very challenging. It's going to take you a couple days. So if you finish this assignment in 15-30 minutes, you're probably not including a lot of detail. It's going to take you a while to do this. It's not such simple. Okay, it is simple. It's simple, but it's a lot more complex. It takes a lot of steps, and you gotta draw all of them. So good luck. Have a good day, and make sure that you are reading well and reviewing this video again and again.